I want to talk to you tonight. I want to introduce you to the Afghanistan that I know, which I think is probably in stark contrast to the Afghanistan that you typically see in the media here. It's a land of great beauty, of fascinating history and heritage and amazing art and artwork, very diverse people. There's over 50 languages spoken there. And it's a place that yields one story after another. But all the bad things that you've heard about Afghanistan are mostly also true. It's a country that's reeling from more than 3 decades of war, a violent conflict. But for every tragedy that we do get to hear about here, there's usually a triumph that we don't get to hear about. And for every villain you hear about, there's a hero that you don't hear about. And I'm very fortunate to get to work with a lot of those heroes in the work that I do in the education sector in the country. Our organization runs libraries. We do literacy classes for people of all ages. We have schools, and we train teachers. We train 1,000 teachers every single year. And why we've opted to work in education when there's so many priorities in the rebuilding of Afghanistan is because you get the most bang for your buck in education in terms of investing in human capital and giving people equipping them with the skills and the knowledge that they need to tackle their own problems and manage their own affairs. So we think this is the most strategic place that we could possibly be working. And also, education is where peace building can happen. We tend to think of peace building as men in suits sitting around a negotiating table drawing up peace accords, but where peace building really happens is in classrooms. Education can make or break a society. It can provoke violence, and it can also end it. And so nowhere is this more true than when it comes to the education of women and girls. We know that in states that mistreat women, where discrimination against women is the norm, where women are not empowered, those states tend to fail more often. They tend to be unstable and insecure. So it's not only the moral thing to do to support and invest in women and girls, it's also the smart thing to do, also in terms of ending poverty. We have projected stats for countries like Nigeria, for example, that if girls had the same employment rates as boys there would be $14 billion added to their economy every single year. So we need to pay attention to the potential impact of education and to the social deviants in societies like Afghanistan's and Pakistan's, who are the trailblazers, who challenge the status quo in their countries and redefine their culture. Some of them are known, like Malala Yousafzai of Swat Valley in Pakistan, but most of them are unknown. People like my friend Ehsan, who lives in Kandahar in southern Afghanistan and runs a community college for girls there, where thousands of girls have graduated and have gone on to become the breadwinners of their families. And Ehsan is pretty routinely threatened for the work that he does, but he does it anyways, and he thinks that it's the most important work that he could possibly be doing. And I think that we need to pay a lot more attention to people like Ehsan and what they're trying to tell us with their actions, and to the 170,000 other teachers that go to work every day in Afghanistan, where you can be killed for being a teacher, especially a teacher of girls. So I think that we have to stand up for the human right to education, which is a universal one. And I've been trying to do that work since 1996, when I was a 9th grader, and I did my first ever activist task, which was putting together a petition asking for women's and girls' rights to be protected in Afghanistan. And I was amazed that when I'd ask my fellow Canadians to sign it, lots of people said no, and they said that it was none of our business how women and girls in Afghanistan are treated. And I couldn't believe my ears. It was absolutely infuriating that rights or culture and religion could trump rights. So I was infuriated not only at the Taliban's atrocious behavior, but also at the reactions that I saw among my very fellow privileged Canadians. And actually, my anger management issues have at times been made very public. I had the unique experience of seeing my own huge round face on the sides of buses and park benches and in newsstands all over the city for a couple of days a few years ago when they did this story in 24 hours. So all of Vancouver knew I was really pissed off. So I've always been getting told to mind my own business, and I get called an imperialist and all kinds of fun things like that. And I'm told that human rights are a Western construction. But what is in fact a construction is culture. Culture is made by humans, and humans can change it. And they do all the time. And there was a time in our own culture where women couldn't vote. They didn't vote. You wouldn't think of it. Where they couldn't work outside their homes. And we laugh at those ideas now, and we would be offended if someone wanted to bring them back. But we're somehow less horrified when the same is said about a place like Afghanistan, where in fact women are fighting those same battles now, the fights that we once waged. And I think that we can easily identify an injustice when we see one, and we have an innate ability to distinguish between right and wrong. And that's not only an emotional capability, it's really a biological one. And though we sometimes smother it, we are biologically programmed to respond to pain in other people. So whether you see something as gory as someone cutting off their own arm, or something as trivial as someone getting a paper cut, we react to pain in others with empathy, and we're genetically programmed to do that. We have molecules in our chemical makeup, like oxytocin, which triggers feelings of empathy, of generosity, of compassion. It's why you might smile when you see a baby. And so we have that biological capacity. But as we grow up and go out into the world, and we're confronted with the way society wants us to be, we sometimes smother it in our wish to not go against the grain, to not voice a viewpoint that's different than other people. And what I found in Afghanistan, I've made 40 trips there over the last 10 years, is that people there are actually exactly like people here. We want the same things at the end of the day. We want our children to grow up in a safe and loving and comfortable environment. We want them to have dignity, and we want them to have opportunity and hopes and dreams. So if we can't live with the idea of someone telling us that our own sisters and daughters and mothers and wives are denied the right to learn, then we shouldn't be able to live with that idea for Afghan women and girls also. Because these little social deviants are our future, and we have to protect that future at all costs. They represent an incredible, enormous solution staring us in the face to so many of the world's ills, from poverty to instability to extremism. So please stand with them, and thank you so much.